Hello my friends, Jenkins Dota here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of DotaAlchemy.com, and this video is going to be part of the How to Gain Rank video series. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about figuring out your job in a game of Dota, how to do your job in a game of Dota. So have you ever played a game where it feels like you did almost everything that you could, basically perfectly, but you still ended up losing? I think this is a relatively common feeling at all levels of Dota, and even making this video, I still impulsively have felt this feeling in the previous week, a couple of times actually. And I think that this is something that is not specific to any role. For instance, I'm an offlaner, so a lot of the time I have that impulse that I'm making space for my team, and if they don't take the space, well, it's kind of their fault. So it's definitely a very common feeling for everybody that what more could I have done? I feel like I played perfectly. And I think actually a lot of the time a losing team, an entire losing team, and I mean all 5 players, will feel that way after the game, especially if it's a pub and if it's solo queue, because everybody will leave the game thinking well, what went wrong? Why did we lose? It couldn't have been my fault. Like I said, that's a fairly reasonable thing to think for a lot of reasons. And if that's true, then why did the team lose? Why was the game lost? In some cases, a game actually was really well played by every player on a team, and that is a legitimate feeling, but they still lose, simply because of a complete outdraft. But this is seldom the case in Dota. Complete outdrafts are very, very rare at all levels of Dota. Chances are, the reason the game was lost is because players on the losing team were not doing their jobs, and that's the problem. Notice, though, that I did not say that the losing players are playing poorly. There's a huge difference. You could actually play really amazingly while doing a job that you shouldn't be doing and still lose the game horribly. And that's why I think this is a completely legitimate feeling to have, and that's why I think that this is a very common feeling that people have, and it's because they are doing their job very well, but only it's not really their job. It's somebody else's job that they're doing. Or they're doing a job that would be their job, but there's somebody else already doing it. And it's really, really important to figure out what you need to be doing in a game of Dota, because otherwise this will happen a lot. So this clip that I want to show you guys is part of a game that I played recently in solo queue. It's top 100 NA, so people are pretty good, and I still think that it's an excellent example of 2 players not doing their job and how it can affect a game. So in this game, I'm the Mirana. We have a Legion Commander safe lane and a Queen of Pain mid. So a tri-core that is decent in the late game, but not as formidable as a lot of these, typical carries. Like, for instance, a Slark is extremely good in the late game. A Phantom Lancer is extremely good in the late game. So these 3 heroes, while they're decent, they're not late game, ultra hard carries. So with that being said, let's look at their heroes. So they have a Slark. Like I said, he is a hyper carry. He is crazy if he can get some stacks up in his Essence Shift in the late game. He can kill very, very many heroes very quickly. Pangolier, this hero is probably on the same level as our 3 cores. I would say that maybe Mirana outcarries a Pangolier in terms of just utility damage in the late game, but Pangolier with this ultimate, Rolling Thunder, really he's pretty formidable in the late game, but we could probably put him on the same level as our 3 cores. Lina, I think Lina is incredibly amazing in the late game. Her damage from her spells is insane. The Fiery Soul gives her so much attack damage, and she has a bunch of damage talents as well. So I think Lina is typically considered a very strong late game core, probably stronger than Queen of Pain, unless the Lina doesn't snowball hard. So basically, my assessment of this game after the fact is that their late game is better than our late game, especially because our safe laner is a Legion commander. But as a trade-off, we have this capability of snowballing on them. We have a capability of ending the game early, or even if we can't end the game early, getting such a lead that it doesn't matter that their late game is better, because we will just simply have more items than they do, and that is perfectly within our capabilities. However, I think that because of how we played this game, and you can see that I'm dying, and this is part of the problem here, because we didn't do our jobs correctly, we gave the enemy team an advantage when they should have been getting crushed, especially because this Legion Commander is free farming in the safe lane. So basically the problem, in my opinion, was between the Legion Commander and me on the Mirana. The Legion Commander, instead of building into a blink, instead of running around with her duel and starting things and killing people, she was just sitting in the safe lane and passively farming, which of course opens her up to getting killed. But, you know, that wouldn't be a big issue because sometimes you just want somebody to run down a lane, just farm, play for the late game, play for maybe the mid game, get some items up, and you have other people, you know, fighting and taking advantage of that space or something like that. But I think that the way that we should have played this is the Legion Commander should have been fighting, and I should have been the one that's farming, because I don't see them killing me with ganks unless I am the person that's running in and trying to apply pressure to them. So basically in this game, just given how both of our heroes work, the Legion Commander and the Mirana, I think that I should have been the one that was sitting in the safe lane, sitting in a lane, pushing by myself, because somebody needs to be applying that pressure. If nobody's applying that pressure, you will lose. So that is a good job. Somebody should be doing that job, and it's good that he's doing it because you don't want nobody doing that job. But look at their heroes. Slark, he can purge my arrow. Pangolier, he's got magic immunity. He can get away with the swashbuckle. Lina, she's very, very quick, hard to hit with arrows. We have no lockdown aside from Witch Doctor, Mirana, Pudge, so these are like pseudo lockdown heroes at best. Whereas the Legion Commander, if he's running around with duel, that can set up for the Pudge, that can set up for the Queen of Pain ulti, that can set up for the Witch Doctor ulti and the Maledict. The Legion Commander is so much better at running around and killing people, especially because she has a massive lead coming out of this free farm safe lane. So she should absolutely be the one, instead of sitting in the safe lane and just passively pushing it out and applying that pressure, which is good. It should have been me that was doing that, because not only is the Legion Commander going to kill more people because she's actually very good against their Tricore, if not a hard counter to their Tricore. I wouldn't die to these heroes like the Legion Commander has been dying to these heroes. The only way that they kill me is with grip. Other than that, I just leap away, and it's so easy. Whereas with the Legion Commander, she dies. So basically, in this game, the Legion Commander and I were doing opposite jobs, and that is a problem. So as you can see here, I believe he survives because of the Mirana ulti, but it's still, like, you can see how he's very vulnerable here. And, I mean, this is pretty good, honestly, because he's been forced into the situation where he's fighting, but only because the enemy team is all bot. Really, he should be up here looking for kills, applying pressure on their side of the map, and I should be the one that is taking the solo side of the map. We would get way more farm, they would be dying a lot more on their cores, we would be getting way more map control, and you can actually see if I go into the late game here, and we look at the net worth, Lina at the top, then Queen of Pain, then Legion Commander, and then the rest of their cores, and then me. So if we were doing that play style where the Legion is the one running around ganking and not playing that kind of carry split push role, the Legion would be stopping all of these heroes from farming, because the Legion, boy, if you're a Slark or a Pangolier or a Lina, Legion is really scary. A Mirana? Who gives a fuck? What, she gonna arrow you? Mirana's really not that scary, whereas if I'm split pushing, I'm perfectly capable of surviving. I have the ulti, I have BKB, I have leaps. I have a Maelstrom for pushing really quickly. So I think I would have more farm, they would have less farm, Legion Commander would have way more dual damage than 20 fucking 8 at 27 minutes. That is a pathetic amount of dual damage. So you can see how, even though we were both doing a job and doing the job decently, I was fighting just like I should have been if I was the fighting hero. Legion was split pushing just like he should have been if he was the split pushing hero. Even though we did those jobs decently, it doesn't matter because they weren't our jobs. So this next clip that I'm going to show you guys is from a game that I also played recently where I was playing Storm Spirit and I played against Sumail Puck mid. Needless to say, when you're playing against basically the best 1v1 player in the game, he completely annihilated me and then went on to win the game for his team. So we were playing from a huge disadvantage in this game. But we all did our jobs so well. As you can see, I intentionally was not taking that fight there. I did not want to fight that. We were all doing our job so well, understanding how we wanted to execute the game plan, that we ended up winning this game, which is amazing. So basically, in this game, I recognized that they had basically no way to stop me from cutting their waves, despite having a huge, massive gold lead, and despite the fact that they were actually pushing our middle racks. In fact, they had the tower down already, so these guys were looking to end the game right here and now. I realized that if I cut this wave, if I cut all of these waves, there's not much that they can do about it. And as you can see, I pinged the top wave telling Monkey, okay, we need to split this up, because if we do this job, we'll eventually go late game and then we can carry. Why look to fight them when we can extend the game? They can't do much about it, and then we can fight them in the late game. Because if you look at our heroes and look at their heroes, our late game lineup is incredibly strong. Storm is godly in the late game. You can zip from Fountain, clear waves, clear the Chaos Knight illusions, kill the puck from a huge distance. Monkey King is great in the late game. His ultimate's one of the most broken things in the game. Beastmaster is exceptional in the late game, especially with his auras. Crystal Maiden even is nothing to scoff at in the late game. Elder Titan with his team fighting and the aura, amazing in the late game. Their late game is decent, but it is nowhere near as good as ours. So we basically realized that all we needed to do was cut as many waves as possible and split push as much as possible. That was our job. Actually, for Monkey King, his job wasn't even to split push. My job was to split push. His job was to farm, because he needed to come online in the late game with this Battle Fury so that there was a reason for me doing this. And as you can see, I'm just spending all of my time attempting to make space, playing on my own, trying to extend the game as much as possible. You can see that I even played very aggressively here, trying to kill the creep wave with the Remnant, even though the CK was winding up a stun on me. The intent was literally just to, okay, I'm going to clear these waves, make sure they don't win the game, and then I think we can win against theirs in the late game. So, as a result, I ended up dying a lot this game, but I prevented the game from ending. Despite it not feeling too great to die, we won, which feels fucking great. My impulse was to farm on Storm and to go for kills, because that's what I do in most games on Storm, but that was not my job. If I farmed and went for kills, my KDA would look a lot better than it is right now, which is 4-4-4. You know, it's not bad, but I'd probably have like 8 kills or something like that. But we would lose. And that's the biggest reason that this is a difficult problem to realize exists in your play. Because when you lose in games, you're not doing your job, it can still feel good because your play actually was good. So for example, I would have a lot of kills this game, it would feel really great. I wouldn't be dying like you see me dying right now. I wouldn't be feeling like, oh my god, there's this emotion associated with it, which makes you kind of feel like you did good or that you did bad in a situation, for instance, like this, where I'm dying, it feels bad, but really, this is the stuff that I need to be doing, because if they're just pushing down mid lane and we haven't killed those waves and we haven't been so cheeky and been so annoying, they would have just ended the game at this point, but we'd feel good. But what feels better? Feeling good in the game or feeling good after the game when you've won? That's basically it. It's very simple. So I've comprised a list, because it's not super obvious, a list of important jobs in Dota that people need to be doing, and this is relevant in most patches, but even more so relevant right now. Some heroes that are really great at doing them, and what will happen if nobody is doing that job in particular. So the first type of hero is a split pusher / space creator / lane shover, aka heroes who can just safely sit in a lane and shove it out, forcing the enemy team to respond to them and waste time, just like you see this Beastmaster doing. Puck, Storm, and Beastmaster are great examples that come to mind. Heroes that just extend the game by being annoying and sitting in a lane. If you don't have one of these heroes on your team, then the enemy team will have no reason to split up themselves. They could just 5-man down a lane if they have an advantage and win. What's stopping them if there's nobody threatening to take objectives on their side of the map? The second thing is a frontliner, damage soak, / bait hero. Tide, Pudge, and Timbersaw are all great examples of these heroes. Basically, if the enemy team has spells, they need to cast them on somebody, or they need to die before casting them. Otherwise, if you have a 50-50 split draft, you're just going to go 1-for-1 in team fights with the enemy team, right? So having one of these heroes, one of these really tanky heroes, kind of like an Elder Titan, standing between the enemy team and you, is going to allow you to have the enemy team basically cast spells on a hero who doesn't give as much of a damn about it than your carry, for example. The next type of hero is a farmer / insurance policy. So this would be something like a Monkey King, Anti-Mage, Phantom Lancer. These are great examples. Heroes that are going to be taking the space that your team makes. What's the point of making space if nobody takes it? That's the basic argument for these heroes. At a certain point, these heroes come online and give you a huge power spike, which allows you to win the game. Without one of these heroes, you very literally lack a win condition. So what's the point in playing at all if you don't have one of these? The next type of hero is very important and something that both teams in this game kind of lack, and that's a tower hitter / objective taker. Beastmaster, Lycan, and Leshrac come to mind, although this guy wasn't doing much tower hitting on Beastmaster because he had to do a lot of split pushing. But what's the point in winning fights when you can't take objectives? I mean, Dota is about taking the throne, really. It's about taking towers. If you lack tower push, no matter how many fights you win, you're going to lose the game because the enemy team is going to win one fight and take way more than you could take from winning 5. And that's honestly a big problem that this Dire lineup has, is that they can kill people, sure, but they really, really severely lack tower push. And that was the bane of their existence in this game. The last type of hero that I think you really, really need, and this is one of the most frustrating types of heroes to not have, is an initiator / ganker hero. Beastmaster, Lion, and Storm Spirit are really beautiful examples of this type of hero. These are different from counter initiators, by the way. These are heroes that can get solo picks or start fights and also stop split pushing. If you lack this kind of hero, the enemy team simply needs to split push, and eventually you're going to get out-farmed by them and lose. In some games, you can get away with not doing some of these jobs just because the enemy team lacks something themselves. For example, if the enemy team has very little split push, then you might not need anywhere near as many ganking heroes, because not having ganking heroes opens you up to getting split pushed. But who cares if they can't do it anyway, you know what I mean? You can invest more of your picks basically into doing other jobs. On the flip side, if the enemy team lacks gankers, then you can build more split push items, split push more as a play style, and more people can kind of do that job simply because it will punish the enemy team for not doing their jobs or not being able to do their jobs. It's a balance that, if well understood, can be abused to win almost any game, no matter what heroes you have. One of the most common problems right now is that I see in pubs, everybody seems to think that they're the insurance policy. Everybody takes space, but nobody makes it. People sit in the jungle, hitting creeps, while dying one by one for 40 minutes straight until they eventually lose, then wonder why their team was feeding all game. Sometimes it's actually not the feeding guy's fault that he's feeding. And maybe it's actually your fault for not making space for him, and that's why he's feeding. That's totally possible. In fact, as an offlaner, that's something that I struggled to kind of wrap my head around. It's like, oh, my feeding carry is feeding because I'm not doing a good job. I'm leaving my lane. That's a good example, actually. If you leave for the jungle in the first 10 minutes as an offlaner, your mid and your carry are probably going to feed, and it's actually your fault. That's a well-understood thing right now amongst offlaners, because it's the offlaner's job to distract the supports for their mid and their safe laner until they're strong. So, the next time somebody tells you that they played perfectly in a game, tell them to take another look and make sure that they didn't just play perfectly while doing the wrong job.